I've had a question come in which says, should I do probate myself or should I get a professional to do it? Absolutely great question. Hi, I'm Jasmine from Redwood Financial. I'm the managing director in our family-owned and run chartered financial planning and estate planning firm, and we've been looking after and helping clients in this area for over 20 years. As I say, great question. And the answer is, when it comes to doing probate yourself, is that technically, yes, you can apply for probate yourself, and you can now do so online. And the process has been made a lot simpler and easier by HMRC and the probate office in the last few years. However, just because you can do a thing doesn't necessarily mean that you should do a thing. And I think it's about understanding that it really does depend on the circumstances of the estate, the makeup and the complexity. So here's some of the things that I would be thinking about. If the estate is genuinely very simple, very little in the way of assets, no inheritance tax liability to worry about, and a very simple line of beneficiaries, nothing contentious, no blended families or anything like that, then you may feel comfortable embarking on probate yourself. You do need to remember, though, that if you are the executor of someone's estate, that the legal responsibility to disclose everything correctly falls on you as the executor. So if you do get anything wrong, and ultimately if it's found that you did anything deliberately wrong in the estate planning and probate process, then you will be personally liable for any tax that is owed or any penalties that HMRC might then incur. Typically, though, for most of us, our estates aren't that simple, and we don't just have perhaps a house and a little bit of cash in the bank. And for most of our clients that we work with, actually, you might have lots of different assets, different savings, investments, pensions, property, maybe foreign assets, business assets, and all of that complexity, before you then add in whether or not there's any potential contentious issues between blended families or anything like that. And so the moment it gets even remotely complicated, you are probably going to be better off seeking the help of a professional probate specialist and getting someone involved to make sure that you're claiming all the right reliefs and allowances, you're making all the best use of exemptions to make sure that the estate is being assessed correctly, accurately, and in the most tax efficient way. But here's the other reason why I would recommend that you use a professional for the probate process, even if on the surface of it, probate isn't necessarily needed or you don't think it's particularly complex. And the reason for that is it's really important that we have a legal audit trail of what happens after first death. So for married couples, you will know that the nil rate band and the residential nil rate band are transferable allowances between husband and wife. So what that means is let's say Mr. dies first, and during the probate process, if he doesn't use his nil rate band and residential nil rate band allowances, they can be transferred on second death to his wife and surviving spouse. However, the issue for the executors becomes, how do we prove that when, for example, dad died, he passed everything to mum, and now mum's estate has her allowances as well as her late husband's tax-free allowances to claim when she then dies. This is a real sticking point for a lot of families because they don't often have the legal audit trail or the paperwork that shows that the assets moved from one to the other, and therefore these allowances are available to claim. HMRC will not just take your word for it as executors. You are going to have to prove that those allowances did transfer over. And the best way to do that is having probate done properly, professionally, and the records then being kept. And that's going to make sure that the estate is handled in the most tax efficient way. So yes, whilst you can do probate yourself, you might want to think twice about whether or not you should do it yourself moving forward.